story here. I made a card the other day, and I'm going to show it to you, that I shared with people. Oops, upside down. And this background here, I did with a technique that I learned many years ago called wax paper resist. And I told people I would explain and show how to do it. It is a really fun technique, and actually I'll show a couple of variations on that. And then either in this video or later, I used a sketch challenge for this card, for the layout for this card. And I'll show you how I put together the sketch challenge to cut this. I won't be doing it with this card because I seem to have lost the base sketch challenge that I used, but I'll show you how to bring a sketch challenge into Design Space and cut it for a card layout. And at the same time, and right now while I'm working, I'm also going to show you another technique that I'm getting ready to do while my iron heats up for the wax paper resist. And it's called Faux Silk. And the items you'll need for both of these techniques are very simple. You probably got them all in your stash. For the faux silk, you will need tissue paper. I'm using this colored lavender tissue paper. You can't hardly see it, but it's a nice pale lavender. You will need an adhesive. You can use Elmer's glue, Yes glue, Thin's tacky glue, whatever. Mod Podge. I used for one version of it. I use this Mod Podge paper, and it's a gloss paper, a gloss medium, a gloss one. Or you can just use your Xyron. Just simple Xyron. Very simple technique. All you need, and for the wax paper resist, you need really only 2 or 3 things. You need waxed paper, glossy cardstock. I've got some cut in card front length sizes, and I've got a couple of full size sheets here. For some variations, you need an iron, and here's mine, and it's heating up. And you'll notice, look at my iron, there's no holes on the bottom. This is a crafter's iron, and it's great for things like this because you don't have the holes and you don't have the steam. And a lot of times in crafting, we don't want steam. We don't need steam, and the holes make funny impressions on our projects, like when we're doing iron on heat transfer vinyl. And let me tell you, this puppy gets hot. I found mine in a catalog that came to the house called the Vermont Country Store. And if you Google them, you'll find them. And I've got this on the hottest setting there is. I've got it set to the hottest setting there, and it's heated up. And you want to do this technique where there's no little kids around or no kittens, because I know my son's kitten would be all over this, and he could burn himself. And you don't want him with the little ones around either. I'll tell you a story. My brother, when he was about 2 years old, my mother was ironing with one of these iron, with a regular iron. That's before you could get a steam iron. And she stepped away just for a minute, turned her back just for a minute, and my little brother pulled the iron down on his leg and burned himself. So really bad. So don't. And you're going to want an ironing surface. Now, you don't want to haul out your big ironing board. This is really cool for crafting. I made this. I got a friend to cut me a piece of plywood about 14 inches square. See? About 14 inches square. And I covered it with, you can get this at Hobby Lobby, probably Joann's, heat-resistant quilt batting for use in like making pot holders and stuff. I covered it first with the heat-resistant quilt batting, and then I covered it with, and I just cut them both slightly larger than my piece of wood, and then cut it with a piece of this canvas, you know, just canvas material. And I got it at Joann's again, and just pulled it back to the back, and I just duct taped it down. So you see, and this is also really good as an ironing surface, not only for ironing surfaces, but you keep it clean, and you have a case where you need to, you know, they tell you when you get a new Cricut mat, sometimes it's too sticky and you need to unstick some of it. So it's a really great size to just take your mat and take the cover off, just lay it all straight down, smush, 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 peel it up, and that without having to say, is they're big enough on my shirt or whatever. And excuse the sloppy t-shirt. I figure if George can make videos in a baggy t-shirt, so can I. So you'll need this for the wax paper resist as well to iron on. So, but first I'm going to show you the faux silk. Like I said, there's some instructions that you'll find online will tell you with the faux silk to stamp your image, to stamp some images on here. And if you want to print, you can do that. Stamp images. But if you do that and you're going to use a wet glue, make sure that you're going to do it with a with a glue that's not going to, the glue's not going to run the image and bleed the image. You can use a printed tissue paper. Oh, and those make a lovely design. Or you can just use your plain stuff. Then you just, now I've got the 5.5 inch, the 5-inch Cuttlebug or Xyron, so I'm just going to run a half a sheet through. This is long enough to do the whole half sheet. So, but you can also, but you know, if you want to do a full sheet or just a quarter sheet, just run it through your Xyron, or you apply your liquid glue to the paper. Now, if you apply your liquid glue, you're going to do it kind of, you know, with a thin coat. So you want to, the next step after that, you're going to want to work fast so it doesn't dry out on you. I'm putting that up out of the way. So you just smooth your sheet, peel the backing, toss it away, peel your backing again, turn it, peel your backing away, lay it face up. Then crumble your tissue paper. Just crumble it. See, crumble. And spread it back out. You want some of the wrinkles in here, okay? Then you just lay it on and smush it really well into your adhesive. Like I said, if you're using a wet glue or whatever, you're going to want to work fast. If you're using a wet glue, like the Mod Podge or whatever, and you really want a nice effect, go over it again with another thin coat, or if the wet glue has soaked through, you won't have to do that, and sprinkle glitter on it and smooth it on, and then you'll have a glittery effect as well. Then you can cut it to size. You can bring the raw edge to the back side, because you're going to use this as a background. Anyway, you can bring the raw edge to the raw edges to the side and glue them down so that you've got a nice clean edge. You may, you know, if you're doing it this way, you might want to cut your piece to size first, your cardstock piece to size first, and then apply this. But if you look now, you've got this, and if you see, it's this interesting texture, and it's got kind of the feel of a good silk. And then you can cut this to size. use it for a background. You can stamp on it or just use it for a background piece. You can carefully cut it, you know, because you want to be careful cutting it with your Cricut, because you know it could catch on some of the wrinkles, just like a textured paper or like a textured cardstock. I did one a little bit earlier with on a full sheet with a liquid glue. I used the Mod Podge. You can't really tell, my camera's not the best, but you see it's got, because it's a gloss Mod Podge, and I made sure it's got more of a sheen to it. And I made sure when I did the Mod Podge, because it had the sheen to it, I made sure to make sure that the Mod Podge I had spread it all in the same direction. I just used a foam brush, but so that there was kind of a line, and now it has more of a satin feel. So you get this more satin feel. You really want a satiny feel without the look of without the fabric look. Don't crumble the tissue paper, and you'll get more of a satin look. So that is the faux silk. And I may cut these down and use them for backgrounds for cards. This lavender is a nice spring thing. Now for waxed paper resist. I'm going to show you a couple of options. The first one is just your basic wax paper resist. So I'm going to need my pressing tool. I think my iron is hot now. I'm going to take a piece of glossy cardstock and I'm going to lay it down here on my sheet, on my pressing board. Oh, and another thing you're going to need for this is, some things will tell you to use a Kaleidocolor pad and a brayer. Others will tell you to use a brayer. I personally just like re-inkers and sponges. What color should we make this one? Let's see. No, I don't want black. Blue. I'm in a purple mood kind of day, so let me find my purple. Ah, here we go. This is an old Stampin' Up! Lovely Lilac. So we're going to use Lovely Lilac. And I'm going to go over here to my sponge drawer. And I'm going to get a makeup sponge. These things are cool. They're cheap. These cosmetic sponges. You can get them you can get them at the dollar store. A box of them at the dollar store. So I'm going to set these aside for a second. So I'm going to get my, you need 2 pieces of cardstock. You can do this with 1 and copy paper, but I mean, you're going to double your effect by using 2 pieces of glossy cardstock. So now you're going to pull out a piece of waxed paper slightly larger than your piece, tear it off, and tumble it up again. Tumble, tumble, tumble. Now you're going to open it up and smooth it out on top of your piece. Now put your second piece of glossy cardstock, this piece is glossy side up. You want to put this piece glossy side down on top of your waxed paper. And now you're going to take your hot iron, and mine is hot already, I can tell. You're going to iron it really well. Iron, iron, iron. Really, really well. All the way to the edges. Of course, you know, you're going to trim it down. You can see something looking through here. When you trim it down, you know, you're going to trim off edges and stuff, so it really doesn't matter if it goes all the way to the edge. You set your iron aside, and you take your pieces apart. You're really not going to see much at first. You see more on this bottom one, I think, than on the top one, but I don't know if there's something there or not. But at any rate, so now we're going to take, and here's where the magic happens. Now we're going to take, and we're going to put some drops of re-inker down. And you can use alcohol inks too on this. And I'm just going to start spreading it around. And look what happens. Oh, well, it's getting in there. It'll go away. You could move your, you probably should have moved, and just spread it around. You can brayer a Kaleidacolor pad on it. And just look what you get here. You get this background. It's really interesting. Just depends on how your just depends on how your cardstock took the ink and how took the wax. The wax paper, the wax then into the cardstock resists the ink. So I'm going to try this one to see how it did. I don't think I saw the wax paper, but I'm going to use, well, I got some new alcohol inks the other day. I'm going to use this Poppy Red alcohol ink. There it goes, it opens. And I'm going to drip it onto the cardstock. And I'm going to spread it around. And oh yeah, you see it coming through here. I'm not going to do the whole sheet right now, but you see the design coming through. You see? So you can just maximize your colors or whatever. Here we go. And I'll play with that later, but you see how that works. Now for some variations on this. One variation is really cool. I'll get my colorful plates out. You're going to get your Cuttlebug or your Sizzix or your Big Shot or whatever. You're going to get an embossing folder. Another B plate. Because I know it's here. There it is. Here's another B plate. And you can take your B, you're going to take another piece of wax paper. And this time, you're only going to, you're not going to crumble it. No, you're not going to crumble it at all. Now I'm going to get it about that size. And I'm going to get an embossing folder. This is an Anna Griffin embossing folder. And you can put your piece of wax paper in the embossing folder. You want to cut it to fit, and you're going to trim around it and cut it to fit in the embossing folder. And trim it down some. Okay, so now it fits inside the embossing folder. I think you see where I'm headed here. So you bring out your Cuttlebug, open it up, your general sandwich, your general embossing. This is a C plate. I don't want a C plate. I want my other B plate. My B plates are hiding from me. Oh, well, I'll just use this extra long one right now. So I'll just use this extra long one. This is my bottom plate. So, my extra long one. And you're going to do your sandwich the way you normally would. And you're going to, that's a C plate too. Excuse me a minute while I find my another B plate. They are hiding from me. Way back in the back here. Oh, here's my longer B plate. Well, we're good now. I got it organized a little bit better. So, again, my longer B plate because I can't find my regular size B plate. My sandwich, your general embossing sandwich. And you're just going to run it through the embossing folder. It pops right out. You put your plates away. You fold up the cuddle bug, set it down on the floor, out of the way. You bring, now your wax paper, see, now has the image of that embossing folder. So now you take 2 pieces of your cardstock, your glossy cardstock again, and you sandwich glossy sides toward, both glossy sides towards the wax paper. And you sandwich that in and you iron it again really, really well. I'm going to iron, 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 iron. Okay. You peel it apart. You can kind of see the design in the waxed paper, in the glossy cardstock. One other effect that you can do is you take your piece of waxed paper and you fold it in half, and you fold it in half, you crease the fold, and then you kind of do a diamond in it, and I'm gonna cut it off. Okay, and you just, now I'm gonna just keep folding it up a little bit, and I'm gonna crease it, crease it, crease it as many times as I want. You're just gonna get some, this is gonna give you lines and rays. And maybe I'm gonna twist it a little bit here or there. Okay? Okay. And then the magic happens. I'm going to unroll it and unwrap it. And I'm going to, now you see here, I've got all these rays in it. So let me find my last 2 pieces that I pre-cut. Oh, they're down here on the floor. Of my glossy cardstock. And I'm just going to tear this in half along this first fold. And I'm just going to put this here on my cardstock. And it just depends on how you fold and twist and crumple your wax paper as to what kind of an effect you're going to get. And let's just iron that down. You want to really iron it, get it good and hot. Because you're transferring that wax to your design. So, there we go with those 2. Let's set them aside. Now let's set my ironing surface aside. I'm going to turn off my iron, and I'm going to unplug it as well, because I don't want to burn myself or anybody else like my little brother. He's not so little, he's bigger than me. Okay, so now let's take 2 of these and let's get a fresh sponge. And again, you could use a dauber, you could use a sponge, you could use the thing. On this one, you could do multiple colors to, you know, follow the rays, but I'm going to take this poppy red. I'm going to drip it on the ray on this one. Just a few drops, doesn't mean a lot. I'm just going to rub it all over. I'm going to see what kind of design that this got. I'm going to get a little piece of paper toweling just to see what kind of design we picked up here. And see, we got this kind of, see this kind of shattered design? There, you can see it now. See, they've got this kind of shattered design. Now we're going to go and find the lid to the re-inker. We're going to find the lid to the alcohol ink. And I'm going to go back to here, my violet here, and I'm going to bring my sponge back out. We're going to use the violet on the floral one. And we're just going to rub it around. The ink takes differently, depends on the color, the cardstock, and the type of ink. And I'm going to go ahead and go over it with my look at what we got here. How pretty. We've got a lovely glossy background piece to use. So that's it for this section. I'll be back in another video to show you how I did how I cut the other cards, the other 2 cards that I made. Thanks for watching.